Welcome to the HCI family of podcasts. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We share our own original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. Join us for practitioner-oriented content around all things leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with the HCI family of podcasts.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Joe Lopez, welcome to the conversation today. It is a pleasure to be with you. Are you joining us from the UK today?
No, today I'm at my residence in San Diego, California.
San Diego, beautiful. I just got back from Southern California. My family and I were on vacation. We were visiting some in-laws, and then we spent some time on the beach. Beautiful, beautiful. We're now back in Utah. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah today. Today, we're going to be talking together about how to take an idea to market while developing a team building culture. And this is a fascinating topic for me. And we're really going to be tapping into Joe's global experience, his global strategy experience. As we get started, I wanted to share Joe's bio with everybody. Joe Lopez, who is a global business strategist, is a passionate innovator, entrepreneur, and lifelong learner. His zeal for ideas, sharing new viewpoints and strategies, and team building are genuinely inspiring. His enthusiasm to innovate and learn has been a driving force in his successful career. He is a thought leader that is excited to talk with us today about his experiences, and I'm super thrilled to have this opportunity to talk with you, Joe. Anything you would like to share with us by way of your background or personal context before we just dive on in?
No, that's great. I think I don't like to talk about myself too much, so that sounds.
Well, very good. And in the pre-interview, we were talking a little bit. The reason I asked if you were in the UK right now, we were talking a little bit about your graduate work at Oxford. Maybe you can just tell us a little bit about that and some of the work you're doing globally.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, I'm currently doing a part-time program where I'm in Oxford roughly every quarter. Sometimes it's a little more, sometimes it's a little bit less. It's a very intense program that's focused on global business, international trade, international law, corporate diplomacy. And so what that's done is it's opened me up to work with a lot of European companies that are interested in coming here in the US, and then obviously American companies that are interested in exporting their goods and their brands into Europe. And yeah, I'm leaving for Zurich in August to meet with the World Economic Forum and some of the nonprofits that are over there. So it's a thing that I'm really focused on right now, is just that bridging that gap to help brands kind of come across the pond both ways, especially with newer startup brands and mid-market that aren't really equipped to do that. We have the facilities here, and I have the teams to help them roll out, and then vice versa in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, that's just so cool. And again, as we were talking in the pre-interview, I've spent some time at Oxford. What a magical place. It's just so amazing. Truly, when I say magical, it's just a fascinating place to be. So even for anyone listening, if you ever have a chance, if you're ever over on the other side of the pond and you're able to just even go tour, it's an amazing place to be. And all of the work that you're doing, Joe, is just fascinating. And I'm excited to talk with you about not only this aspect of taking ideas to market, that's fascinating in and of itself. And from an entrepreneurial standpoint, from a global market standpoint, that's super exciting. But doing it within the context of, like, let's focus on developing a team building culture while we're trying to take these ideas to market within a global marketplace.
Yeah.
That's also just a really interesting, complex thing. And frankly, I'm really appreciative that that's something you're focusing on, because that's often not where the focus is when people are working in the space. Usually that would be in the back of their mind, if it's on their mind at all. It's really about the idea. It's about the product. It's about the supply chains. It's about the relationships around, with the stakeholders around the globe. It's not necessarily about the team you're building to help do the thing, and that can often result in a lot of challenges and problems. So let's start to unpack that. Like, what have you been doing, and what have you seen with your own work as you've started to put together your team?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'll just start. I think my initial answer would be to frame this up for you in something that my father always taught me. I'm the son of an IBM salesman slash lieutenant colonel in the military, so people were a big part of my growing up and understanding how to work with them. And my father taught me at an early age, number one, you can never go wrong by treating people right. Number two, a business is nothing more than the people who are there.
Yeah.
And as long as you set your sail and your course according to that, you really can't go wrong. And boy, was he right, because as I've led teams in startups, also in turnaround situations, which are even there's more, torsion on companies like that where people are sort of distressed. I've always found that, when you're building or you're resetting a team, the first thing is human beings in business are attracted to feeling safe. They want to
Yeah.
know that there is a steady hand on that rudder, that there's a rock that they can cling to, that's going to get them out of this, get the product started, get it launched, get the company reset and turned around. It's interesting because through my career, I've seen a lot of similarities across businesses with people, and I've noticed that. And I think at some point I'd like to write about that because it's just so fascinating to me to see the dynamics of building a team, resetting it in some cases, which can make it even stronger. So those are my kind of core tenets. My philosophy when I go in is I'm conservative. I don't go in and say, okay, with a turnaround situation, we need to remove everyone. That's the opposite. I usually walk into a situation and I sit in the office of the person who was there before me and I try to absorb. I listen to people. I hear everything that they have to say about the business. When it comes to a startup situation, that's great because then you're really able to recruit and bring in the folks that you think you'll be able to deploy in the right positions. I'm also a big believer, John, in just really the person, not so much the exact role. I think today we've lost the plot a bit, in my opinion, with just over focused on experience. Why weren't you weren't at this competitor or this specific industry? I've found in my career, not only is it important to have the right person, but it's also the loyalty, the fact that you give them an opportunity to prove themselves from another industry. And also the other thing is, and I've heard Elon talk about this a lot, it's not just about the IQ either of the person, because usually if you bring somebody in with a high EQ, they really are loyal and they'll really be
Mhm.
flexible and be able to go across industries, and they're less likely to be thinking about creating their own business and running out the door tomorrow, which is a big problem that we have with startups and particularly in the Bay Area, which is normally where I work with startups. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a framework on how my brain works around, human capital and people, the most important thing a business has.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. Just the framing around people being the most important asset. I completely agree. Not people as an asset in terms of, sometimes people kind of cringe at that or balk at that idea of people as an asset. Oh, that means they're disposable, blah, blah, blah. No, we're talking about people as an asset in terms of they're valuable. We're going to invest in them just like you would any other asset, just as you would any other resource. So we're just talking the language of business,
Yes.
so that you can recognize how important the people are, that they're valuable, that we need to invest in them. And I appreciate how much emphasis you put on that, in that people are what build the business. They are the ones who create the product and services that you then bring to market, that then allow you to make money, that then help the company to grow, right? They're the ones that do the innovations that allow you to add value to the market. So people really are important. And all of that can only happen as you build successful teams. And so, just valuing people in and of it themselves is super important. I think there's a business case for it. There's a human case, a moral case for it. But also moving from just, the innate value of people is, which is important, moving from that to how do we really develop teams? How do we have a team building culture? How do we really demonstrate that we value how these humans interact with each other successfully so that we can now take this idea to market, especially when we're talking now globally or distributed teams, or now we have offices in various places around the world. Maybe we could talk for a minute about some of the challenges that you've seen and faced, and then maybe some of the things you've done to try to respond to those challenges to find greater success.
Absolutely. And just to kind of tie it back to the earlier point that I was making, I would say, I kind of gave you the frame up of how I think and how I view people and how we need to help people, A, feel stable in startup and turnaround situations, and then B, now that we're talking about, really building out the teams, really creating an environment and a culture. I'm happy to tell you about some of the scars on my body that from the issues with that, as well as the lessons learned, as we like to say, right? So I think, distributed teams are that's exactly where I like to sit. I believe in talent. I think talent is the kind of thing that it's distributed equally around the world, but opportunity is not.
Yeah, yeah.
So the concept is you can find great talent all over the world, in Africa, in Europe, in Australia, in Americas, you name it. So I think for me, that's a big part of it is having a global mindset that there's a lot of culture and diversity that we can bring in to a business, and particularly like a startup, and finding the right folks who have the right set of skills, but the right connection, the right opportunity to leverage that person's skill and to have them grow and to have them be at the right place in the right time at that company. It's not always easy to find, but that's what I search for is I'm
Mm.
looking specifically for people that come from a background where, yes, of course, it's a benefit if they've had the experience. If you're looking at software engineering, you can look in Africa. There's great software engineers there. Here in America, that's a big shortage that we have is engineers in general, software, hardware, you name it. So what I always lead with is the culture. I think putting that up as your banner, as this is a fun team. We travel together. We'll bring everyone in for quarterly meetings at a minimum to make sure that the team is getting that time and connected. And we also make sure that the team is trained, this distributed folks, to deal with the intercultural pieces of it prior to even coming on board. We put them through a training process to say, hey, this is the company. This is what we're about. This is who we are. I think unless you define that, it's very difficult to start to create culture because what you find is you'll see founders that just kind of run astray and let the company lead them versus you leading the business and the cadence for the people that are there, which is what you see with really, really successful companies. They've created what I always strive to create, which is a way about doing business, their way, their cultural way that they do that. So to answer your question about the challenges, yes, of course they're there with distributed teams, even teams just within the US or within an office, the politics that can come out of that, the water cooler talk, those are all challenges to constantly reset the culture and to make sure everyone's believing in the mission. Human beings, again, want to be drawn towards a stability, a rock, and then know that they have a place to flower and grow. And then they will give you back so much more, John, to the business, and contribute and feel good and create a good culture. It's business, so it's not always happy. John, not every day is great. I'm not going to lie. Okay, there are days that are better than others. There are weeks that are better than others. But
Yeah,
generally
yeah.
speaking, if we're setting the course with a team, this is the culture that we're going to take. This is how we deal with problems and tackle it. Then there's some thought process there. Okay, we understand. The company's always got my back, right? It's not just leaving us out as a software engineer in Morocco from a French Algerian guy who doesn't feel connected to the team at all. Absolutely every single person needs to feel like they are a critical path or they end up floundering. And I've seen it time and time again.
Yeah, excellent. And I appreciate the focus in your experience around these distributed teams, but also the recognition that whether you're distributed, whether you're remote, hybrid, or face to face, team building is all about culture, and it's hard. It doesn't matter if you're together in the same office or if you're scattered across continents. It's challenging, and it's built upon trust. Like team building and a team building culture is built upon trust and mutual accountability and trust. And it's hard. It culture will emerge, like some sort of culture will emerge
Yes.
organically.
Yes.
Um, and usually, what emerges organically will not be particularly healthy or helpful or productive unless you purposely try to nudge it along in a productive, healthy way. So, unless you're strategic about like trying to create a healthy team building culture, um, unhealthy things happen, toxic things happen. Things
Yes.
will shape it in a way that's not the way you want it. And so we have to proactively try to create that team building culture, put in place the mechanisms of mutual accountability and trust, create the opportunities for people to have that human connection, to work together, to build the trust, etc. And if it's hard to do in a face-to-face setting, and it is, but if it's hard to do in a face-to-face setting, it's going to be hard to do in a hybrid or a virtual distributed setting, right? Um, and so it just brings to mind the importance of why we need to prioritize this in any types of work that we're doing, and in the work that you're talking about. If you're a startup, if you're an entrepreneurial endeavor or a merger acquisition, if you're meeting with new people, if you're bringing new team members onto the team, you have to work really hard at trying to integrate people in to try to really establish the type of team culture that you really want to have. And maybe we could take the rest of our time together to just talk about some of those types of things you've done to proactively, strategically create that culture, to develop, put in place those mechanisms so that you can have that culture emerge in the direction that you want it to.
Yeah, really well said. I think, just for my own edification too, to recap that and add my own little spin on it, add some texture. I couldn't agree more. You have no choice with culture. It's coming one way or another. It's just whether or not you want to steer it the right way, in the way that you want it to go, as a leader, who can then build their company around that, or let the toxic and the people that are being asked to do the wrong things at the wrong time to kind of let that spiral and let them not feel good. To human beings, we're all very similar, right? If we ask, I always say, if you ask a dolphin to climb a tree, whose fault is that? Whose fault is that? When I have leaders come to me and they'll say things like, I just don't understand. Joe, why aren't people just doing their job? Well, I think I know what the problem is right out of the gate. If you're talking to me about you don't understand why people aren't doing their job, chances are you've probably not paid attention, you've given them too much rope, or you're asking them to do things that they're just not able to do, and you don't see that. So that's very important, I think, is spending the time, I would say, with individuals. There's no waste. I never think about it as, oh, I'm taking a half an hour with this person. If I can spend that time to listen, to learn from that individual about what it is that they're doing, what their challenges are, what kind of support that they need, that pays off dividends for them and for the business. And I find it's when you've got these sort of more aloof leaders, oftentimes they're high intellects, or, maybe just really um, um, nuts and bolts business people, just do the job. That's where things can get squirrely. So I avoid any and all of that through my own personal way of always reaching out, being in a constant cadence with people that I have scheduled. So I have scheduled meetings just for culture. That's the first thing,
Mm,
John, is
mhm.
I'm just scheduling meetings for culture where I'm taking time out of my day. I'm enforcing our people to meet with me on this and talk about it. When I say force, I mean get away from, not you have to do this, but get away from the business. Get away from what you're doing. Let's talk about what you're seeing, what you're feeling. How can we improve? What are the things that you'd like to see? Of course, like, we can't make all those changes to every business, but it allows our people to be a part of that process, and that's critical path when it comes to building a business, is that everyone has buy-in, because in a startup environment, particularly if you're launching brands globally or, moving them countries, oh my gosh, if there's not alignment with that and buy-in and personal accountability, you're not going to succeed. I've got to give you the bad news. You're not going to succeed. Why is that? Well, the simple answer is because we're not talking about a 9 to 5 situation. We're talking about muscling, pushing things over the top, doing things on weekends, extra time to make sure deliveries, shipments, customer satisfaction is there through the entire supply chain, right? Whatever that is. So for that to happen, it takes the people to push that through and to make
Yeah.
sure that they feel accountable and a part of it. So the first thing is culture meetings, very, very important.
Can you
Um,
describe a little bit what those meetings look like?
I'd love to. So I block off anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour, depending on the particular situation, the person, what we're dealing with. And I will have a one-on-one meeting to just get everything out on the table with how they're doing, how they're feeling about the company is how I usually ask. I open it up with very open-ended questions. How are you doing? Right? How American, by the way, is that? We're known internationally. How are you doing today? Most people outside of the US are not familiar with that question, right? So then that puts them a little back a little bit. Well, let me talk about that. And, oh, how are you feeling about your job? How are you feeling about your coworkers, about me, about how we're working together? How can we maximize our time as a company better? I'll ask leading questions and listen. Although I'm not doing a very good job of it on this interview, as you can tell, I like to listen and hear what folks have to say. I take notes of that, and then I review it with the team. If we've got an HR team, if it's a very small company, I review it with my inner circle. Right, I just call it the small table. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, so just the inner circle to talk about those, and are there things that are systemic that we think we can change? How can we address this for Ryan and Suzanne and Amir? How can we address those kinds of things? So I think it's, for me, business, especially about a startup or a turnaround, it's all about getting in front of the ball with people and making sure I'm there fielding it for them to protect them, to give them the resources that they need. Those culture calls are very organic. They're not that structured, because they can go a lot of different ways. But what I'm really looking for, why I'm spending that time, is to pull out of that person, whether they're an introvert or an extrovert, to make them feel comfortable enough that their paycheck's not being threatened. And what else could we be doing to make optimization better for you, for how you're feeling, and for the company overall. The next thing is our sort of quarterly meetings. I'm also a big fan of getting together. But when we do that, what I've seen go wrong are just things like, these national sales meetings, which I've run through my career when I was, coming up, and you have to get everyone in a room and it's uncomfortable and you're in bad chairs and bad lights and you're there for 3 days eating muffins. It's amazing no one feels happy or good. And I never understood how that created culture. And
Mm.
I don't believe it does. I don't believe it does. So when we bring people in, we usually do it in a fun environment, right? We want some fun activity, whether it's physical that people like Top Golf, going to see something like a musical together, a play even, creating things that create those bonds. Because with that limited time as adults, where we're taking time away from our personal life to travel, we then have to really invest in what we're doing with that time as a company to say, let's create an event that brings everyone together. Let's also do some team building experience. I don't mean team building as, fall down in my arms, but, really spend the time together, so that those bonds are created, they're fostered, and then we can fan those flames. I think that's a second piece. So is always having that, I give you my father's advice was always have something planned, right? So then they know every quarter we're doing XYZ, we're traveling here. And it may be, if we're doing well and we're rewarding the team, then we may be going to a tropical island, right, for a
Mhm.
getaway, and you bring your spouse. If things are not like that, then we're just doing the basics. We're bringing the team in and saying, here's what we're building, here's where we're going, this is the vision, contribute, contribute, contribute. And what we find is, particularly with turnarounds, what you find is when you go in, you're kind of like, it's like you got a flashlight, everyone's running away. But you hold that flashlight still long enough, and the same thing's true with a startup, and you get people drawn to it. They draw into the light. They want to come into the right direction that they need to be working on for their development and growth, their pathway up into the company, and then future success. Nobody goes into a job in an opportunity thinking, I want this to fail. I'm just going
Right.
to take a paycheck. That comes from how they're treated, how they feel, the culture that you and I feel in our stomachs when we're talking about getting up on Monday. How does that feel? Does it feel good? Are you excited? Not every Monday is great. I get cases of the Mondays. We all do. But there's an overriding thing there. And sometimes if it's really bad, we call it the fear, which is Sunday night,
Right.
which
The
is what's
Sunday
coming.
blues, right?
Sunday blues. So we try and avoid all that as much as possible by treating people right. It all comes back to my key principles. You can never go wrong by treating people right, and that people are the most important thing at the business.
Joe, we could go on and on. We've only scratched the surface, but I also note the time. I need to let you go here in just a minute.
Thank
Before we
you.
wrap things up for today, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for the time, John. Yeah, if folks are interested in following me, I do most of my work on LinkedIn. I have a very active LinkedIn profile where I'm talking about international trade, moving brands from continent to continent, leadership, team building, developing corporate culture, you name it, as well as some personal experiences. I travel a lot, so I'll talk about the opportunities that I see with economic development in different countries. You can reach me at LinkedIn. It's what is it? It's linkedin.com/IN/J Lopez III, because I'm Joe Lopez the third. So that's the best way to get a hold of me. And I'm on that pretty consistently. And I have a small group of people who help me with it as well. In addition to that, just kind of wrapping up, yeah, I mean, looking back on my career and thinking through human capital, leadership, people, again, most important thing you could do is focus on your people, treat them right, whatever and if you're in a turnaround situation, listen to them. They're the key. Don't run in and think we're going to do this and be so heavy-handed. It's very important to listen to people, to sit down in an environment and absorb what's going on around you. And then you can be the leader that executes, sends the orders out, and gets things done. But to walk in and just kind of clear things, or we're going to do like this, be very heavy-handed, I've often seen that go the wrong way, or even worse, to your point, not having a cultural plan. So I would encourage everybody on this to make sure they're always thinking about that, creating a cultural plan, and executing as best as they can. And I'm available to discuss that at any point.
Love it. Joe, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, to get connected, find out more about what Joe and his team can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and please join us again soon.